Hello, my friend. I am often asked about how people can get even more witch wave and more magic in their lives overall. And I have the answer. You can join me over on the Witch Wave Patreon. This is how you can hear from me and my other magical guests on a weekly basis via my Witch Wave Plus bi-weekly bonus episodes. And you get the regular Witch Wave episodes ad-free, and you get detailed show notes for all of it. And all Patreon members also get access to my monthly ritual workshops, which you can attend live or watch the recording of at your leisure throughout the month. Rewards for some tiers also include magical merch and contests where you can win witchly prizes, as well as early heads up about my workshops before they sell out, and opportunities to work with me one-on-one. And all backers get access to our exclusive digital coven, where you can connect to a community of other wonderful Witch Wave witches around the world. So head on over to patreon.com/witchwave and sign up. It's a magnificent way to get more magic in your life and to support the show. Thank you so much.
The world is filled with bewitching people, and you might be one too. Welcome to the podcast where art is magic is real, and reality is stranger than dreams. I'm Pam Grossman, and this is the Witch Wave.
Hello and welcome to the Witch Wave. And today we're getting physical and metaphysical as always. Yes, lovely ones, we are going to speak all about witchcraft and fitness. And this is a topic that's been requested from listeners periodically over the years, but I just hadn't found quite the right guest to address it until now. Or maybe I just wasn't ready to have the conversation myself. I don't know. But as so often happens with me on this show, this guest came to my attention just when I needed it most in my own life. And I hope that this is coming to you right when you need it too. Because as you'll hear, I've been on quite a journey with my own physical well-being. And it's been a journey with ups and downs and starts and stops, but I'm currently in a period of re-engaging with my physical well-being and trying to get healthier and stronger and trying to do so in a way that fully engages my magical self. And my gods, am I happy that physical coach and strength magician Cara, Claymore, and I have crossed paths. Because since speaking with them, and I should note that Cara told me that they, she, he, these are all pronouns that work for them. But this conversation has already had a huge impact on my life and on my process of taking care of my body. And I was already starting to tweak things a little bit along the way. For example, a couple years ago, I realized that I really don't like the word exercise. And so I've been using the word movement instead. And that minor adjustment alone has helped me reframe fitness and physicality in a more pleasurable and joyful way. And over the years, I've become very mindful about the music I listen to and even the clothing I'm wearing to help me feel more like myself during movement practices. Even so, there's still been a disconnect for me. And even though raising my energy and keeping my vessel vital has clear spiritual purpose, I've been wanting to bring even more magic to my physical practice. In our conversation today, you'll hear Cara discuss the many ways that expanding one's physicality can expand one's magic. But I wanted to mention 2 new practices that I've incorporated into my movement regime since Cara and I spoke. The first is that I'm now working closely with the goddess Hygeia. This is the Greek goddess of health and well-being, and it's where we get the word hygiene from. And Hygeia is closely related to Asclepius, the god of healing and medicine. Hygeia was beloved by the followers of Pythagoras. In fact, they thought that the pentagram, in other words, the 5-pointed star, was a symbol of Hygeia because to them, this represented harmonic proportion, and it also symbolized a perfect balance of the 5 elements. And so now I've started dedicating my movement and strength training sessions to Hygeia. And this has been such a game changer. I can't even tell you. It's been so wonderful to begin to get to know a new goddess, or new to me anyway, newish to me. I mean, I was certainly aware of her, but this is the first time that I'm really forging a relationship, a personal relationship with Hygeia. Anyway, related to Hygeia, I also had another breakthrough, which is that I realized I just fucking hate counting reps. I find it tedious and, I don't know, just like boring and kind of punishing. So instead, what I've done is I've started to now call out, or at least think to myself, the 5 elements. So in other words, rather than counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead, I now say air, fire, water, earth, spirit. And so if I do 10 reps, I just repeat that cycle. And it makes me feel so much more connected to magic and to the different energies and spirits. And honestly, it's just so much more fun and engaging for me. So I just wanted to give Cara a huge thank you at the top of the show for inspiring me. And I also know that this is just the beginning and that there will be many more magical practices to incorporate into my metaphysical, physical practice. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm so excited to incorporate a lot more of what Cara and I cover during our chat. I feel so empowered and so motivated and just so grateful. So you're not going to want to miss our conversation, believe me. But before we get to that, first, let's check and see what's come through on the Witch Wire.
Who is it?
Witches! Hi there, this is Mega from Seattle, recording from Mexico City, a magical city. So I am a middle-aged woman who has always loved her body. It's tiny and voluptuous and great. But as I am firmly in middle age, my body is not doing the things it used to be able to do. It is not moving in the ways it used to be able to move, and the weight is certainly in places I'm not used to. So in general, it's a reckoning with a body that I've always loved, but one that is changing. What is the sort of magical perspective or even practical perspective with which I should be approaching fitness and strength training at this juncture? Thank you.
Okay, I'm giggling because Mega happens to be one of my best friends in the universe. And yes, she told me I was indeed allowed to tell you that. And yes, I can absolutely attest that Mega is a great beauty in and out. But I think that this question is relevant for anybody. Even if you're listening and you're not as comfortable in your own skin as Mega has been. Because I think that most humans have fluctuations in self-image over time or even throughout the course of a day. I know I certainly do. So first of all, thank you, Mega, for this thoughtful question and for sharing both your pride and your vulnerability. And while I'm not qualified to comment on how someone in their 40s should approach their fitness in specific ways, I'm sure you and I are going to talk about this more next time we chat, Mega, but I do know that strength training is super important, specifically at this age and onward, because this is when muscle loss starts to happen in middle age. So that's something I've been doing in a physical way, just incorporating more strength training. Anyway, I do feel qualified to comment on the magical piece of your question in a lot more detail. And first of all, Mega, I think you and others are just going to get so much out of my conversation with Cara, but I also want to suggest that having an image of a goddess or god in mind when you're thinking about your fitness and your body is just so helpful. Not only because of the different powers or energies that they can conjure or inspire you to conjure in yourself, but also because in my experience, the very depictions of these deities just generally reflect a more diverse body type. You know, these beauty standards of being tiny, as you say, that's, as I know you know, Mega, and I know a lot of people listening know, that is such a relatively new convention. And when you see these older images of deities, they often have more swerves and curves. So that's just, you know, kind of like the superficial piece of it. But I also love working with a god or goddess because of the magic that they hold. And they can remind us that working out is not just about appearance. It's not about trying to look hot or be skinny or any of those aesthetic goals. And listen, we're all human. I succumb to those traditional beauty standards plenty of times in my life too, and wanting to be less this and more that. And that's totally normal. That's nothing to feel ashamed about. But in working with my own personal trainer and in speaking to Cara, it's so clear that the benefits of exercise is not just aesthetic. It is about feeling strong, feeling powerful, feeling confident and resilient and vital, and plugging into this socket of energy, right? So we can feel more alive and more supported in doing the things that we're meant to do in this body, in this lifetime. Now, because I know you, Mega, I think you'd be comfortable with me revealing that Hindu deities are part of your family lineage and your magical lineage. And I happen to know that you love Kali, for example. Now, Kali is fierce and gorgeous and powerful and kicks ass and doesn't look like a Vogue cover model, to say the very least. I mean, she's got multiple arms and a necklace of skulls, of course, but she also isn't a stick figure. And so I wonder if when you're working out, she might be a goddess for you to tap into, to channel, to offer yourself to in those moments. Or maybe there's someone else in your personal pantheon who makes you feel strong and glorious and radiant. But no matter whom you choose or who chooses you, I think that by envisioning a goddess you love, you'll be less focused on picking apart your own appearance and more centered on the strength and energy that you're building so that you can conjure a more powerful, pleasurable life. I hope that helps, and if not, I'm sure I'll get a phone call soon telling me so. Love you, buddy. Now, on to my guest. Cara Claymore is a filmmaker, artist, writer, speaker, and tarotist. as well as a strength athlete and strength and fitness coach. They are a polytheistic witch and syncretic magical operator who subscribes to a fully inspirited worldview and strives to play and provoke on the frontier of the human imagination. Their animist lens centers relationality at the heart of their artistic, magical, and fitness work. They have competed and placed at the national level in the sport of strong woman, strong man, and they are the creator of the landmark fitness class Mythic Strength, hosted by CrossFit South Brooklyn. They also offer personal mentorship and coaching on a limited basis, and they have written for BarBend and Refinery29 and on their Substack, strengthmagic.substack.com, and magic is spelled MAGICK. Cara joined me in the podcast studio here in Brooklyn, and you can watch the video of our conversation over on my YouTube channel, which is at Phantasmophile. Cara Claymore, welcome to the Witch Wave.
Thank you so much, Pam. I am so excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. And as I told you before we started recording, I invited you here for such, I'm just going to call them selfish reasons, in hopes that what I've been going through lately in my own journey, in terms of my relationship to my body and fitness and health, in hopes that other people are going to be able to relate to it. And I imagine they will. And I'm just going to start, and I promise this preamble won't be too long because I don't want to just vomit out my entire story to you. But the briefest thing I'll say is that I've had a lot of challenges and setbacks when it comes to my own fitness. First of all, is fitness a word that you like to use for this conversation? Let's start there, actually.
It's acceptable. I think it's a common enough umbrella that folks will sort of get what we're talking about. Even if it's...
Yeah. Because we're magical people and language is so important in terms of setting intention.
Physical capacity.
Ooh.
I like that. I like the word capacity a lot because that can be flexible based on the context of what you're doing in relationship to the task that you're doing.
Yes.
Whether that's your daily life or,
I love that.
Lifting weights.
Yeah, I'm going to use that. So my physical capacity has felt to me to be somewhat diminished. I am 44. I've gone through many phases of being super fit, even though I have problems even with that language, but feeling good in terms of my physical capacity, to use your language. And then I've had a series of injuries and setbacks and things that have made me less active. And every time I try to get more active again, I hurt myself again, and then I stop for a long time. And it becomes this feedback loop. So where I'm at in my journey, just for context, is I have just started engaging for the first time in my life with a personal trainer. She is lovely. I've had one session with her. She is super, super lovely. But I'm at the way, way beginning of trying to get myself back to the physical capacity that I am hoping to, achieve, reach, and so on. But it's clear to me that one of the things that I would benefit from, and I think our viewers and listeners would benefit from, is figuring out how to better integrate my magical life and my witch self into my fitness self. And I see the relationship, and yet I haven't quite connected those pieces. And that is basically what you are an expert in, correct?
Yes. So...
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Pam. Thank you so much first for opening up to me about that stuff, how we relate to our bodies and how it is able to express itself in the machinations of our lives can fluctuate wildly. And I've worked with folks, across the age and ability spectrum, and having repetitive chronic stress injuries or pain sensations is a very common thing. And it can be a very demoralizing experience that causes people to sort of withdraw and sort of disconnect from their physical experience.
Yes.
And discourage them from seeking more physical expression, whether that's, a physical activity or a specific training protocol. So I'm an animist, and the way that sort of ties into and expresses itself through how I approach physical training is that I am in relationship with a host of living animated forces that have condensed into the focal point that I call Cara, that I call my body.
All right, I love this already. I think most people know what animism is, but if you could expand upon that, that'd be great.
So at least for me, I engage with my spirituality through what I would call an inspirited worldview, in that I relate to everything as though it is alive.
Yes.
And so the land has spirit, the molecules of my body has spirit, this table has spirit.
Yes.
There are nature spirits, there are animal spirits, there are disincarnate intelligences, some of which may be more like us and that we might call gods or ghosts, or maybe our own dead, all the way to more primal elemental forces as well. So I think reality is very beautiful and strange and mysterious, and we have our different ways that we might codify and name those forces.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of walk around like I'm in Lord of the Rings at all time. Like just everything is alive and magic and intense. So for a little context, I came to physical training in my early 20s, and I was like somewhat active as a child, but I was very much like an artsy theater kid and did not feel super at home in sports or stuff like that. But I love being outside.
Thank you.
But it was after the sort of shitstorm of my early 20s where I was doing a lot of bartending and like service industry jobs. And a lot of that was just very not good for me. And I ended up finding my way to just a job at a gym in like a customer service capacity. And through that and sort of following this like fairy breadcrumb trail of just hunches, I fell into the sport of strongman, strongwoman, which for those of you that don't know is basically like extreme manual labor done at very high intensities. You're picking up massive boulders and kegs of beer and sandbags and odd object lifting. It's mixed in with some like classic barbell training, and World's Strongest Man is probably the most well-known iteration of this.
So to pause you, in the world of Lord of the Rings, would you be a dwarf? Like, who are the strong men and strong women of Lord of the Rings?
So I definitely think I have a lot of dwarven qualities. I like gems and stones. But I also like love the forest and being outdoors. So I feel like I might be like a Mirkwood elf. I'm not quite the like Lothlorien, like more ethereal elves. I'm more like down in the mix
in the ground.
A little bit.
Okay. Nice. So maybe you could haul giant gems in your next iteration of Cara.
That's
but
right.
anyhow,
Sorry, I feel like I've gotten so off track.
No, I got you off track because I had to ask you that full-on dork-ass question. So here you are, you're in the world of being a strong man, strong woman. Are you competing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I sort of found myself training in this sport and competing in this sport. And it's a modality, a practice, a subculture that lends itself to very like extreme expressions of physical output.
Yeah.
And as somebody who had had a lot of sort of adverse experiences and was at the time like very disconnected from my body, it became a very grounding thing that brought me into a very sensational embodied awareness of my objective power. Like when you start moving weight from A to B, that is like twice your own body weight, there's no ambiguity about it whatsoever. It's like, I am strong, period.
Yeah, I can do this.
And that produced a very powerful shift in my awareness of my body and what it could do. And my realization that I had all of these sort of subliminal
like tapes?
Unconscious like tapes and stories about what I was capable of doing. And I realized I had no idea what I was capable of doing.
Yes.
And so I got really in love with pursuing greater weights and bigger challenges. So for a while, I was just very about the sport and competing in it and experiencing my own power through it.
Yes.
And then through the sport and through a couple of contests in particular, I had these moments that I now describe as borderline encounters with the numinous, where I surrendered to a state of being and flow where like something else in my system took over. And I was able to do things that just like completely blew my own mind.
Wow.
And that sort of cemented my belief that our physical vessel is this sort of nexus point of energies that we get to relate to and cultivate in particular directions. And strength through resistance training in particular, which is like a methodology, it's a principle in action that you can do many different ways, is a really reliable tool for cultivating a specific relationship to your ability to be grounded and powerfully expressive of your physical space in a way that is unique to strength training that other modalities will not necessarily reproduce.
And if I could pause you, you're talking about having that presence, that confidence 24/7. Well, maybe not when you're sleeping, but
my sleep, I'm just like,
I knew it. But not just in a gym context, but when you're just like walking around or hanging out with friends or having a business meeting, I imagine you feel empowered and grounded in a way that maybe you didn't before.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Also, I think I was very fortunate. I had very good, very nurturing teachers for like my early years of strength training.
Right.
And I worked and collaborated with some really great people. And around a few years into my strong person journey was when I started actually developing my magical and spiritual practices and sort of opening up that part of myself after being away from it for a very long time. So strength training sort of came first.
Interesting.
And it was in my exploration of the spirit world and my own spiritual seeking that I began to see a lot of parallels to strength training as a personal cultivation discipline and magic as a personal cultivation discipline tool or practice.
Yeah. What was your sort of like magical gateway drug that got you engaging or re-engaging with your magic? Was it tarot? Was it something else? Do you remember?
It was my web series where I played an exorcist. And in the writing of the web series, as we wrote the character and she was doing explicitly magical things that at the time I was like, haha, this is make-believe. By the end of the web series, I was like, I'm all in.
Okay, so this is incredible. And we should catch people up to say you are also a filmmaker.
Yes.
It sounds like you're also an actor.
Yes.
Okay. And so talk about that actually, because I'm really interested in the ways in which roles we play in our artistic lives can be these alter egos and containers for true magic and transformation and ways in which we can like tap into these different aspects of ourselves. So please, actually, let's follow this weird kind of deviation that's not really a deviation and talk about this web series.
So this web series was a natural emergence from my creative relationship with my partner, Jackie Payne. Together, we are Sunstrike Pictures, and we're an independent film company.
Mm-hmm.
And at the sort of outset of our primary collaborative creative relationship, we came together and started writing this story. And it just combined elements of different things that we were really interested in creating and seeing. And it was sort of our like second film school. We both went to school for acting, and now we were at a place where we wanted to make our own work. And so we started writing this character, and her whole gist is that she is a sort of maverick exorcist who, doesn't play by the rule book, does things her own way. She's a bit of a chaos magician.
Yeah.
And has this sort of syncretic blend of how she blends witchcraft and sort of like what you would think of when you think of like an exorcist.
Yeah.
In terms of like the Catholic lineage.
Yeah.
I was raised Catholic too. So this is like sort of a working through my own religious lineage.
Mm-hmm.
So as we just wrote this character and put her together and put her journeys and her adventures together, I found myself just exploring deeper and deeper and deeper and wanting to understand more about the world through a explicitly magical lens. And my partner is a very spiritual, very magical person who is incredibly nurturing of that. So just many late nights of speaking and doing ritual and exploring things. And then it just got to a point where the level of synchronicity and high strange in my life kind of tipped in a certain direction. And there was just like no going back. So it all has sort of emerged very organically. And this idea of storytelling as a form of magic, some folks might be familiar with the idea of hypersigils and using like identity story-based creation to inform your life a certain way. Asher definitely became a hypersigil, even though that wasn't a conscious intention that I had at the outset of her.
Yeah, tell me her
inception.
whole name, the character.
Asher Hawthorne.
Oh, come on. And Asher Hawthorne, in addition to being a hypersigil, it sounds like she or they were an avatar for some aspect of you, right?
Very much so.
But you weren't necessarily conscious of it when you first started writing this character. And then it kind of dawned on you as you were embodying her and writing her.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. And now she's sort of at a place. So we made this web series and then we wrote a feature script and then we produced a new short film and sort of took the character in a new direction that was a little even more feral and wild and playful.
Yeah.
So now she's really sort of taken on her own more like autonomous existence as this vessel for what I would like to see more of in cinema when it comes to magically coded femme characters. And just like, I love horror as a genre and the paranormal, but it's pretty explicitly negative in how it portrays a lot of magic. There's still a lot of the stereotype of, the Wicked Witch.
And diabolism and devil
all these
worship
things.
and all this stuff. Yeah.
And that can be a wonderful time. Like The Witch is one of like my favorite movies. But I wanted to also see and create a character who could be this sort of more sovereign and baggage-free, spiritually authoritative person who's completely doing her own thing.
Incredible. Okay. So many follow-up questions. Just the first, like, easy one is, what is the name of the series and the film? How can people watch them if indeed they can?
Yes. The series is just called Asher, and it's on YouTube. So if you search Asher Lonely Cow Productions, which was our production company name at the time, it's all up there.
Great.
And the short film is called Be Not Afraid. We're putting it into festivals right now. So it's not widely viewable, but it will be hopefully later this year.
Okay. So watch this space. I want to connect Asher to then the magical fitness goddess, witch, magic maker that you are. Where were you at this point on your own journey of physicality? Like, were you already doing strong woman and strong person things
so
while creating this character too?
I had been training very dedicatedly and competing for close to 2.5, 3 years, probably by the time we wrote and produced the first episode of Asher. And we actually have like there's a scene of her in the gym in the first episode. So that sort of element of like my physicality was written into the character. And some of the things that I'm doing now, like, go back to the earliest version of me. Like, I was watching X-Men, the animated series when I was a child and was like, that's what I want to be. There it is.
Ooh, anyone in particular? Oh, okay.
And then like little Gambit too. Gambit, little Nightcrawler.
Nice.
Like, I relate to all of them in different ways, but Rogue was always my number one.
I love this so much. Okay. So there you are, you're doing these competitions and you're starting to explore your magical practice. Your creative life is also blossoming through this character. When did you start connecting your magical practice that you were developing with your physical practice?
2020.
I love that you can pinpoint that. I was not expecting an exact date, but that's the timestamp. Okay.
That's the timestamp. The many reasons, one being that as the world shifted and our relationships to the social world shifted, I was working in the gym personal training in January 2020. And then
was this in New York City?
Yes. I've been in New York since like 2007.
Great.
My personal training business ended effectively in the way that I was doing it. And I built a tiny gym in my apartment. And so I started lifting at home, which gave me a freedom to express myself in training a way that I never had because of the nature of being in a gym and being perceived by other people and that sort of subconscious filter that kind of like
language right
turns
now.
on.
Yes.
And so I started playing exactly the music that I wanted to play. Music is a huge part of like how I connect to my spirituality and cultivating just a particular atmosphere and vibe when I would train. So there was a sort of an expansiveness of just my own felt presence with myself that just sort of organically started unfolding. Then I started directly invoking the Norse god Thor, and he became a very
you are
potent...
not fucking around.
No. He was actually my official introduction to polytheism in terms of how I practice it now. And it sort of started feeling kind of silly, like Thor, like you need the guy like in the Marvel movies, you know? And he was like, no, this is an actual ancient deity.
Yeah, of course.
Who I connect to and vibe with.
Yes.
And so he's sort of...
Who has heavy things.
He lifts heavy things and he's got a big hammer. And interesting, at my last strongman contests in 2019, I had won strongman. We love pageantry. So the trophies are always like really cool. And the trophy I had won was a giant hammer.
Oh, incredible.
And I had that just like sitting in our living room.
That's so affirming.
And I started just periodically doing little rituals and I would like offer my workouts to him.
Yes.
And it just started bringing so much joy into my physical practice, which ended up opening a lot of... It shifted my relationship to what I was doing in the practice. Sort of the common mentality is I am training to make my body a certain way.
Yes.
I am training to fix something about myself or improve
meet some standard.
Something about myself. And then it started being something more like I am training as a ritual to feel connected to the most expansive aspects of myself.
All right. We got to stop right there because I find this to be overwhelming in the best way. Because that's what I found in my creative practice, that when I stopped focusing on writing to like impress people or get good feedback. And it's not that I don't still have those voices in my head, and I still have my ego, and I still have material desires of needing to pay my bills and all of those things, wanting to be liked, all of that shit. But when I started being like, this is a collaboration with spirit, this is an offering to something bigger than myself, it really just like shifted my writing and my career, frankly. And it sounds like that is what you've been able to do for your body. And like, I feel like I'm on the cusp of that, but hearing you actually put it into words is like very door opening and heart opening for me. That's so beautiful.
Thank you.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Mineralogy Project. Have crystals been calling you? Do you find yourself wandering into rock shops and metaphysical stores and coming out with pockets full of stones, asking yourself, what do I do with all these rocks? Or have you been intuitively incorporating crystals in your meditation, altar practice, or energy work and feeling called to learn more? Then you should sign up for Crystal Class with Mineralogy Project. It's an online, self-directed course that dives deep into all things crystalline, from history and geology to energetic protection and crystal practices. This course presents a thoughtful structure in which to investigate and deepen your relationship with crystals and sparks inspiration for the ways you can incorporate them in your daily life, rituals, and practices. So whether you're crystal curious or a long-time collector, this class is for you. Sign up for Crystal Class at mineralogyproject.com or follow the link in bio on Instagram at Mineralogy Project. And Mineralogy Project is spelled M as in magic, INERALOGY Project. And Witchwave listeners receive an exclusive $40 registration discount with the code WitchWave40. That's WitchWave40. So head on over to mineralogyproject.com or follow the link in bio at Mineralogy Project on Instagram. And one more thing, Mineralogy Project also hosts monthly thematic crystal live sales on Instagram. The Summer Solstice Live is happening on June 8th. So join the live sale to select some of the most unique stones sourced directly from around the world. That's at Mineralogy Project. The Witch Wave is sponsored by BetterHelp. One of my favorite developments over my lifetime is how there is now so much less stigma around mental health. I myself have been seeing a therapist since I was 14 years old, and I remember in the 1990s, it felt kind of taboo. And I'm so happy and grateful that my parents had the foresight to get me some support back then, because I was really struggling and it really helped me. But they were kind of pioneers because I didn't know of that many other people of any age who were in therapy. But today, me, all of my immediate family members, my husband, and most of my friends all go to therapy. And it's just not a big deal. In fact, we all see it as such a privilege to have access to it because it's such a crucial component in maintaining our well-being. But even though mental health awareness has been growing by leaps and bounds, there is still progress to be made, because 26% of Americans who participated in a recent survey say that they have avoided seeking mental health support due to fear of judgment. And that breaks my heart, because I'm here to say that I have the deepest respect for anyone who prioritizes their mental health and takes good care of themselves, particularly by going to therapy. Because when we take care of our mental health, we're taking care of ourselves and therefore taking care of the relationships in our lives by extension. Because I know that when I'm emotionally healthy and feeling supported, I can then be a much more effective and supportive partner, family member, colleague, and friend. And as you may know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So let's encourage everyone to take care of their well-being and break the stigma. Now, I love my current therapist, and I credit therapy with helping me be a more stable, more fulfilled, more resilient person. And the world is better when people are healthy and happy and taking good care of themselves. And we could all use some more health and happiness these days. Wouldn't you agree? So if you're thinking of going to therapy, don't hesitate and give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp has over 10 years of experience matching people with the right therapist from their diverse network of more than 30,000 licensed therapists with a wide range of specialties. And BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient, serving over 5 million people worldwide. Best of all, you can easily switch therapists at any time at no extra cost. We're all better with help. Visit betterhelp.com/witchwave to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, spelled HELP.com/witchwave. Welcome back to the Witch Wave. Do you mind if I'm nosy and we talk about what your space looks and feels like and what you're offering to Thor? Like, are you using language? Are you lighting candles? And I understand if some of this is private.
Sure. My home gym has I don't use it as much anymore, actually. But at the time, I have this really beautiful painting that's a print of a Frank Frazetta painting called Dark Kingdom. And it has this very Thor-like figure on it. And he's sort of striding toward the viewer. And he has an axe, not a hammer, but same.
Yeah.
So that's like dead center in the room. So I had my little barbell rack set up facing that. So it's like I'd be deadlifting and then like looking up like at this painting. And it's Frazetta. So if you look up the painting if you can, Dark Kingdom. It's very intense.
I'm familiar with the artist.
Confrontational.
Ooh.
And I found it very potent and very stirring. And I would say sometimes it would be like as simple as Thor, I offer you the effort of my striving in a desire to experience more of what you are. Oh my God. Because I also believe that we connect to certain deities and forces for a reason. And Thor wouldn't even pop up on my radar if I did not inherently have within me the same qualities. So by connecting to him, I'm able to amplify those aspects of myself without sort of getting caught up in like the self-referential ego game of like self-worship or being too fixated on myself as a human being, because that's just hard for us sometimes.
Yes. Oh, this is so powerful. And this is making me think of, I was a little girl and I was growing up in the 80s. She-Ra was my jam. She-Ra, Princess of Power. Like that was my shit. I almost feel like I'm giving myself magical homework to be like, can I make a vision board about the different avatars, characters, gods, goddesses? You know, for me, it's not necessarily Thor, but I mean, I'm devoted to Artemis, and she's the goddess of the wild, the moon, archery, which wonderful. I've never learned archery, and I'm kind of tempted to. Perfect, right? But it makes me want to figure out who are some, and I know I'm just interrupting myself because I'm so overexcited and my tongue is not keeping up with my brain. But I feel like a lot of people, they're like fit inspo. It's like skinny people or bikini people or celebrity people, bikini people. You get the idea. And it feels so much more nourishing to me to be like, okay, not that I do this myself, but for someone to be like, okay, I'm not going to put up an image of, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson's just popping into my head.
Sure.
Instead, I'm going to put up an image of Athena, you know, something like that. It just seems so much more I don't know.
That is actually homework that I have given clients in the past,
Wow.
which is to just sort of brainstorm about characters and figures and deities that you might sort of just ping with. And they don't have to be an ancient pagan god, as much as that might be awesome for you. But if it's Storm from X-Men,
Yeah.
those images,
Or Rey from Star Wars.
Any character. I mean, I think our narrative characters and the power of storytelling is its own incredibly potently magic
Agree.
thing. That those characters
100%.
capture archetypes, and those energies are real. And then they're sort of solidified into that character, and that's what you're resonating with. So if it's a comic book character or historical figure, like the sky's the limit. It doesn't have to be relegated necessarily to a specific deity, or even a deity that doesn't have anything to do traditionally with expressions of physical strength. If you're like, Hades is my guy, he inspires me. Great.
What would a Hades workout be, I wonder? You're just like
probably just play some goth music,
wrestling
wear
with
black,
three-headed dogs.
Just be kind of like a little metal, a little grunge, like a still sexy,
Yeah, but that's something I've really struggled with, and you touched on this a little bit earlier. Like, I never saw myself in the world of sports and fitness. And I had, and still do, unfortunately, have a bit of an aversion to a lot of the mainstream culture of fitness. I've taken lots of classes over the years. I've done lots of like videos. I actually really love yoga. And unfortunately, some of my pain stuff doesn't allow me to do it anymore. Maybe I'll get back to a place where I can.
Sure.
But I hate gyms. I hate them so fucking much. And it reminds me of, I grew up in a town that there were great people there, but there was a lot of superficiality and a lot of girls had to look a certain way.
Sure.
And, all of that kind of thing. And I really rebelled against it. And it gave me a lot of fortification to be like, oh, I'm not like them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little freak and I hang out in the art room.
Yeah.
But it's an old tape. It really is an old tape because, of course, there's so many different ways to be healthy and connect to our bodies. And yet I still struggle to like find classes or gyms where I don't feel like that 14-year-old weirdo.
Absolutely. And honestly, I related to that big time.
Yeah.
My sort of initial foray into gyms was simply born of the necessity that I could not work in a bar anymore. And I needed something that was just like a basic customer service. Friend had the hookup, when I worked at this place.
Yeah.
But even then, like when I started lifting weights, I did it like after everybody had left so that I could just not deal with people.
People like,
and I was
is it also about being perceived?
It was something about being perceived, being judged. Like I
Self-consciousness.
just pretty quickly had like a hunch that I was onto something generative for me. But I did not want to be like explaining, and I didn't even have language for it at the time. I was truly like a very exploratory place. And I worked a very bougie, like upscale Manhattan gym where I did not want all the trainers like converging on me and telling me, oh, this is how you should do that.
Right.
I just wasn't interested. And I sort of reflexively have issues with any kind of established dogma whatsoever in everything.
Wow, someone who loves Thor and like doesn't like authority. Imagine
Shocker,
that.
Right? I just needed space to sort of figure it out on my own. And I was fortunate that the literal physical environment was like a very like aesthetically cultivated, like dim lighting and like low ceilings. It was very like cave-like.
Candles.
And that was a huge help because environment matters a lot. There are so many things that we register physiologically, nervous system-wise, emotionally, based on our environment. And most gyms are designed like dog shit. And it's like incredibly
Hideous
bright
lights.
fluorescent lights
Oh
and
my
like
God.
no mind to aesthetics whatsoever.
Yeah.
No sense of like purpose and cultivation or meaning. It's sort of often caters towards preying on people's insecurities.
Yep.
So there's a lot to hate. And I say that as someone who loves working out now. So I think it is very tough for people. And something I try to impart to people is to really be compassionate and gentle with yourself. And that a lot of the times, like, well, there is lots to the reality of having inner resistance around how confrontational training can be because you have to deal with your weakness and you have to deal with where things are hard for you. That's a very real barrier that is also a massive opportunity. But that can too often get very eclipsed by the social, aesthetic, psychological pressures that come with the gym world and all the insecurities. And it's a mess.
Yeah. And
It's
especially, we haven't really touched on the whole challenge of people's like self-image and body image. And, my relationship to my own self-image and body is in flux. There are some times I feel great. There are sometimes I feel like complete shit and everything in between. Sometimes it's very dysmorphic. Other times I feel amazing. Like it's very all over the place. And I find it humbling, and I know it is an opportunity, but I find it humbling when I'm really not good at shit.
Yeah.
And when my body doesn't do, and in some cases, I hate to admit it, but look
Sure,
how I want it
sure.
to or feel how I want it to. And there's like shame attached to it, right?
For
And
sure.
embarrassment and self-consciousness and all of that shit, which is another barrier to have
Mhm.
to overcome,
Absolutely.
in addition to just like, this is
Absolutely.
physically hard,
Right.
you know?
Right. Definitely.
So has your relationship to just like having a vessel, having a body, being perceived, all of that, has that shifted for you over time?
Dramatically.
Can you talk a little
Sure,
about
yeah,
that,
for
if
sure.
you don't mind?
As a very young child, I didn't even think about my body. It's like I was just running around having a good time being a little fairy creature.
Bliss.
And then puberty, and then school, and
Mm.
all these things that suddenly made me aware that I was being perceived, and all of the social weight that comes with being perceived as a teen female in a certain social political framework or whatever. And I felt very awkward in my body around age like 12, 13. Like I was no longer sort of doing physical things that I felt embodied and was having fun with. Everything felt sort of awkward, with the exception of stage performance. So like I love being on stage and I loved how I felt in that. But if I was like not on stage, I was incredibly self-critical and felt very just weird and out of place in my own body.
Yeah.
And so I'm, not quite 5'9", and I've been this size since I was like 13.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm slightly on the larger end.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just always hyper aware of the space that I was taking up. And a lot of times where I did not have the confidence and love of self to like own that.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of just sort of trying to shrink.
Shrinking.
And then that plus all of the messaging that we absorb about size and desirability and your, sort of sexual economy and that being part of your toolkit in the world and all that shit.
Yep.
So by the time I got to like weightlifting, it was being driven by this sort of like hard to articulate like need to feel in control. I was coming through a phase in life that was sort of particularly disastrous, had some like climactic personal stuff going on. And I was like, well, my life is a shit show and I need to control something. Maybe I can do a plank. Maybe I can do a push-up. Maybe I can control what my body literally just does.
Yeah.
And start there and see how that feels. And not for nothing, I was motivated to look like a superhero.
Yeah.
I found that empowering. It was tied up in a lot of the like body image, self-critical stuff at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I also felt entitled to just honor that impulse and see where it took me.
Right.
Which then led me into the world of strength sports and strength culture, which can be very niche and very weird and have a lot of the sort of distortions around body image, even worse
Yeah.
than some even more mainstream fitness. But
Just
in
people
terms
thinking
of
they're
dysmorphia,
never
you're
big
never
enough or
you're never
strong enough.
and exploring what would then sort of emerge over time as my masculine side too. Like there was a freedom in being like, I need to train to be bigger. I need to be more jacked.
Whoa.
And so it was a little dysmorphic, but it was also empowering at the same time.
Well, I can see because
So-
as people in feminine bodies, we are taught we're supposed to be small, we're supposed to be
small.
skinny, but have huge tits.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Although I know that, those different like trends shift over
Sure,
time.
sure.
I think now you're supposed to have a huge ass. I can't keep up.
Who can keep up?
Exactly.
So yeah, in terms of how I was being perceived and my own relationship to it, it started to change a lot. And then when I got to sort of a certain like muscular stature, then I started getting a sort of a different type of attention. It was not uncommon for people to be like, oh, I bet you could fight me.
Yeah.
It's like, sir, I have no desire to fight you. So there's sort of a whole different
But you and I
angle
are
on things.
clearly about to fight on
I mean,
camera right now.
Obviously.
You would destroy me. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm playing into it, but I had to.
But even
Yeah.
that was like a refreshing sort of change of pace. I was like, well, I enjoy the fact that I am being perceived as objectively powerful
Yes.
in this chosen domain that I have decided to cultivate.
Yeah. That's so interesting. On that note, we're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back. This season of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. For 20 years, indie scent artist Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab, known affectionately as BPAL, has been formulating perfume oils for each month's full moon, inspired by their colorful names and descriptions in historical almanacs. 2025 will be no exception. Look for their monthly launches called A Little Lunacy, which include not only these limited edition scents for fellow lunatics, but also an ongoing series of perfumes inspired by classical artworks, and some which raise funds for a variety of charitable causes. The lab's general catalog is teeming with perfume oils, hair gloss sprays, beard oils, and bath oils, which can be yours year-round, covering a truly bewildering range of scent types and inspirations that include cinema, gothic literature, and occultism. To that end, BPAL recently brought back a recurring scent series called An Evening with the Spirits, drawing from legends and historical accounts of Victorian-era spiritualism. These haunting scents, such as Psychodynamic Discharge and the Fox Sisters, will remain in Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab's web shop well into 2025. Month by month, year by year, the lunacy continues at blackphoenixalchemylab.com. I've got a really special new offering for you all, and that is new Witch Wave ceremonial soap, which has been made in collaboration with my favorite soap company, 2 et al. 2 et al. Makes soap and skincare using traditional alchemical techniques to transform pure water and plant-based ingredients into beautiful, handcrafted, cold-processed soaps, which are also magically charged. These soaps are beyond bewitching and luxurious, and after being a hardcore fan of them for a while, I knew I wanted to collaborate with them, and I am so thrilled that they agreed. I'm overjoyed to now offer Witch Wave Soap by 2 et al., available now exclusively in the Witch Wave shop over at witchwavepodcast.com/shop. 2 et al. Founders Matthew and Natalie and I put our heads together to come up with a special soap blend that is deeply magical just for you. The Witch Wave blend incorporates such intentional ingredients as black salt for cleansing and protection, yarrow to aid in divination and love, and mugwort, also known as artemisia, for lunar connection and visionary insights. It's also blended with the most beautiful fragrant oils, including frankincense, which smells incredible and also helps amplify connection with the divine. We were invoking deities like Artemis and Hecate when designing the ingredients of the soap, as well as the packaging. You'll note the skeleton key on the side. And this soap can be used whenever you want to ready yourself for ritual work or simply as a daily ceremonial practice to help you cleanse and recenter into your own magic. So go ahead and order Witch Wave Soap by 2 et al. And me over at witchwavepodcast.com/shop. And if you want to check out 2 et al.'s other incredible alchemical soap blends and skincare, you can do so at 2etal.co. That's TUETAL.co, and use offer code WitchWave15 for 15% off your order from the 2 et al. Website. So once again, you can get our new exclusive Witch Wave soap from the Witch Wave shop, and you can get 15% off other 2 et al. Offerings from their site, 2etal.co, with offer code WitchWave15. Hi, Witch Wavers. I know, and you know, you want some Witch Wave merch. And our print-on-demand merch site is now available through Dashery. So if you want to get different variations of our gorgeous Witch Wave logo designed by Thunderwing, or our Witches Are the Future catchphrase designed by Lara Antal, printed on everything from t-shirts, mugs, totes, stickers, magnets, notebooks, you name it, you can. Shirts come in different styles and fabrics and are available in sizes small through 5XL, so you can order whatever you'll feel you're most comfortable and most magical in. So head on over to witchwave.dashery.com. That's witchwave.dashery.com, or you can click the Dashery link in the Witch Wave shop over at witchwavepodcast.com/shop. Welcome back to the Witch Wave.
So now you coach people, you
teach people how to do this? And is that something that you enjoy? Like, what is your perspective on being somebody's, I don't know, would you call it like a fitness doula? Or there's probably better language
No, I'm
than
just
that.
a coach.
Yeah.
I'm just a coach.
Feels like the right
I
word.
like coach. I also like mentor. My early coaches, they were also effectively mentors. And I like the implication of moral responsibility and ethical responsibility that comes with that, because I am in the care and stewardship of their bodies.
Yes.
And there is risk in what I do, and I have to be very dialed in and attuned to my people's needs.
Yeah.
But I'm also there to help them discover that they are capable of a lot. And so I get a great deal of joy and satisfaction from helping people get to that point of, oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
That is just one of the most special feelings ever.
Yes.
So I love it.
So again, selfishly motivated question, which I hope other people will benefit from. For somebody who is, and I think just starting out isn't the right phrase for me, because I've gone through periods of being like very fit. And yet I still feel like I am just starting out. I feel overwhelmed. The personal trainer I'm working with, she's starting me with really simple stuff. Like, I'm not even going to touch weights for a few weeks, like really simple exercises just to get me back in my body, which is, again, very humbling. But for me, I appreciate it, because I think I would start working out using all my old techniques and then hurt myself immediately because my body's not there yet. Anyhow, how do you work with people who are intimidated by this, who want to get started, don't know how? Like, what are some good, I don't know, introductory, initiatory, if you will, steps that they can take?
I think following your natural curiosity is very important, and not feeling pressured to adhere to a certain modality or approach just because it's what everyone says you should do. So while I love resistance training and traditional barbell training, if that feels wildly unapproachable and scary, maybe don't start there. Start with something that's maybe more body weight oriented, calisthenics oriented. If you're inspired by a particular modality, like even if you're like, you mentioned archery earlier, you're like, that's not exercise, right? But if you really approach that skill as something you're passionate about, you might then discover, well, to get better at archery, I maybe would benefit by strengthening my upper body a little bit. So what exercises can I do? You might discover, oh, maybe I should buy a pull-up bar for my home. And then you get a pull-up bar, and then you start doing, band-assisted pull-ups or something like that. And so you find sort of a gateway through something that naturally excites you. I'm a huge believer in following excitement, because I think our own natural desires are correct, and it's an interpretation issue we have sometimes. That being said, sometimes desire comes with a spark of fear, and it's actually a good thing. So if you're like, okay, there's something intimidating about this, but in that way that kind of gets the blood up, I think the path will unfold as you follow that curiosity. Maybe that leads to you going to different gyms and trying sessions with trainers or trying a different group class. You're not going to know that you found the thing until you've tried a bunch of different stuff. I think maybe I was just in the right place, right time, and I had certain things sort of delivered to me because I was seeking, and that was it. And a lot of people end up sort of finding that that's what happens, is as soon as you decide that you are available to pursuing this thing for yourself, options will start to appear.
It's so funny you say that. And it's like, I give this advice all the time for people who are looking for like a witchcraft mentor or teacher. And it's like, if you ask the universe, if you cast a spell to find it, suddenly you find a teacher. I mean, that's what happened with me. I cast a spell, and listeners have heard this many times, but I cast a spell in my 20s to find a teacher. And literally the next day I was led to Robin Rose Bennett, who's a green witch who became a mentor of mine. And yet it has never occurred to me to cast a spell to find the right fitness path.
So, and this
Why,
is
Cara?
Right. And so this is the problem, I think. I'm going to broadly generalize, but this is the problem with the Western mind.
Yes.
Is that we box everything into these very strict categories. You're like, well, I'm a witch, but only when I'm at home with my herbs doing my specific witch thing. It's like everything has the opportunity to be enchanted.
Yes.
So I'm a huge fan of magical journaling. Highly recommend Aidan Wachter's books. In his book, Weaving Fate, he details a really awesome practice that I got a lot out of. Read the book, but effectively it's a magical journaling practice where you're writing about things as if they've already happened. And I use that approach to great success in many areas. And I think that's a really great way to approach things from a metaphysical perspective. One, when you write about something or voice memo or whatever your jam is, you start to get a sense of, you start to pull out, okay, this is how I really feel about it. And then you can start to select, well, what do I really want to feel about it? Like, oh my gosh, I found the most perfect niche mentor trainer for me. She's this and she's that. They introduced me to these cool things that I never heard of before, but make me feel so powerful in my body. So I think it's an opportunity to get curious about what the ideal experience would feel like and then go from there.
Oh, that is such good advice. Now, when you are doing these offerings to Thor, is there a way, like I understand the whole session might be offered to him, but is there a way that when you're literally lifting the weights, you're also in that magical mindset? Or like, how does that work?
So
if you don't mind.
No, not at all. So for me, it's one of those things where the intention at this point is now just sort of like baked in. I'll use a little whiteboard when I'm at the gym. It's common in CrossFit gyms, which is where I train. Use a little whiteboard to track your reps and whatever you're doing. And I'll draw like a little bind rune that I came up with. That's just sort of like a reminder and sort of an invocation. Sometimes I'll verbally actualize like, hey, Thor, be with me. I'm doing the thing. And then I just try to relax and be as present with my body and with what I'm doing as possible. And I just trust that by setting the intention and connecting to it, however briefly, like it's not a big to do.
Yeah.
It's really not.
Although for me, I'm like, ooh, what's my fitness altar gonna look like?
Sure.
Like just because I
totally
love that.
Absolutely.
I have an altar for my book right now because I'm finishing my book. It's coming out in October. And so I have a book altar. Why not have a fitness altar,
Absolutely.
a body altar,
Absolutely.
a vessel altar?
I think the sky is truly the limit. I would say with regard to that, the sky is the limit, but don't let some sort of sense of self-obligation that you have to do a whole big thing stop you from doing anything.
Right.
So if you literally are just like, I'm going to get down on the push-ups and just say, Thor, help me. Like that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. As you find the relationship and the dynamic as it goes, it'll evolve. And I'll say too that Thor is an aspect, but lately as well, I've also been really connecting to the elements and how the elements and the land are expressed through and in our own bodies and how our bodies are an emergence of the land. And so from this sort of animistic lens of relationality, when I am taking time to self-cultivate and steward my body in a way that feels good to me, I'm also connecting deeper into the land and its spirits and energies.
That is so gorgeous.
Thank you. Sometimes the ego side of it's fun, but it's helped to sort of de-emphasize that a little bit as well. And also to bring in a sense of like almost communion in the sense of connection to other forces, that the water and the sky and fire and earth are all part of me, and I can call on those elements to support me in what I'm doing.
Yes.
So just to out myself as an even bigger nerd, my girlfriend recently got me started playing the Elder Scrolls Skyrim.
Okay.
And in that, I'm a battle
mage.
That's a
video game,
It's a video
right?
game.
Okay,
it's a video game. And
yeah.
I'm a battle mage, and you get to like select your skill biases. So I do little weapons and a little casting. And there's a spell that you can cast called Stone Flesh and Oak Flesh. And you cast it, and then your skin gets like tougher in the game and makes you like more damage resistant.
Yes.
So that gave me more language and ideas. So now when I'm getting under the bar for like a really heavy squat, I'm like, Stone Flesh. And it's like, I feel, and it helps me like connect to my energetic lines. And I like connect more deeply into the tension that I need to generate to do that movement. It's expanded my language and imaginal playground for how I'm dealing with the forces that I'm moving through my body.
That is so awesome. That really resonates with me. And it also makes me giggle in the best way. I know you're also a tarot reader.
Yes.
And the strength card is obviously like wanting to come into the chat right now. Are there other tarot cards that you feel are helpful for you in terms of how you relate to your own body and your own strength? Or is strength the card for you generally?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually read tarot for a little while explicitly through a talking to the body lens. And sort of just using the tarot to have a conversation with my body about what it needed. So cards like the 10 of Wands, I relate to being able to shoulder large burdens and move them effectively to the culmination of my goal.
Yes.
I also relate to all of the knights and their like lance bearing. The chariot, I love from just a sense of like energetic and forward movement.
Yes.
The star, I just love because I love it.
She's my fave. Yeah.
It's also the card of my birth date.
Oh,
it's like associated in numerology. So like I'm the star. And
now I have to ask what your sign is.
I'm a Taurus Sun, Gemini Rising, Libra Moon.
Oh, I'm also a Gemini rising.
Oh, you really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Incredible.
And I have 3 other Gemini placements, so I consider myself like an honorary
And
Gemini.
we're about to enter your season. Whoa,
That's
get ready.
That's right. So I got to shout out Mercury Hermes because like he's a really potent energy in my life as well.
Same. He's the guiding spirit of my new book,
yes.
actually.
Oh, I bet he loves that. I bet he loves that.
Let's hope so. I sense he does. Okay, so the tarot cards you're using to both inform your practice, but there are certain archetypes that you click into.
Yeah.
Well.
And I mean, I use tarot in a lot of different ways. Like I have done, I guess, traditional divination, like predictive divination I've done. I'll use it as a channeling conduit for just talking to my own spirits.
Yeah.
That's how I use it primarily these days. And then if I have a question like about my own body, like whatever comes out will come out. I'll get stuff like the Four of Swords a lot, like, bitch, you need to take a nap, you know? Like you
feel like
need a rest.
we all need that card in
and
our
then
life
I'll get
right
like
now.
Knight of Wands. I'm like, these are two different messages. A little bit of both. A little bit of both.
Exactly.
So yeah, I love the tarot. And obviously I'm talking about the Waite Coleman Smith influenced lineage of it. But
yeah.
I love the tarot.
And so people can work with you in a few different ways. And I imagine you sometimes maybe combine them. They can hire you as a personal trainer. They can take classes with you, I understand. And also you do professional tarot readings as well,
yes,
right?
So I haven't, yeah.
and a filmmaker and all the things.
In short, when it comes to working with me in the context of fitness, I do work with some folks remotely in terms of like sort of coach mentorship where I will design a protocol for them and they'll follow it. Those typically are people who have like a little bit of experience with lifting weights that just need a little bit of like guidance into how to focus their time.
And accountability.
And support.
Yeah.
And I teach CrossFit at CrossFit South Brooklyn. Shout out. A wonderful, wonderful place. If you're in Brooklyn, please come by and take a class. And I also, within that space, I teach something that is called Mythic Strength, which is a strong person inspired lifting protocol that's like 3 days a week, mostly lifting. And it's sort of done in the style of strongman training where it's very lifting and strength oriented with a little bit of the competitive dynamic elements that you would see in a competition setting. So like you get these 3 heavy sandbags from point A to point B as fast as you can.
Yeah. How much are you bringing your magic overtly to your clients?
In that space, not super explicitly.
Okay.
Within Mythic Strength, it's sort of just baked into how I approach it. I keep it to the brass tacks of like movement for the most part.
Yeah.
But just being who I am, it just kind of like leaks out.
Yeah.
You know? I don't really give like sort of explicit like metaphysical.
You don't have them
guidance
close their
within that?
eyes and
No,
envision
no,
out.
no.
Okay. But if someone wanted to work with you in a more, I'll call it esoteric and exoteric capacity, I imagine that would be
that's something
appealing for you,
absolutely.
right?
And that's something that I really like doing. And it's something when it comes to sort of one-on-one work now, I like to really tailor the process to that person and what they need. So I prefer to approach things like, you tell me about what it is that you want to be experiencing and changing, and I'll come up with a process and a vessel for how to do that.
Yes.
And a lot of that might be, an exercise protocol, and some of it might be some guidance and influence on how you're engaging with your inner life, like the sort of archetype homework of like connecting, make a vision board, connect to get curious about these more internal dynamics, spiritual dynamics.
I love that so much. I cannot believe we're almost out of time. I feel like we've been speaking for 15 seconds, which is such a good sign. People are going to want to know how they can work with you. I also want to shout out your Substack, which I really love. Can you remind me the title of it?
Yes, Strength Magic.
Yes. And I have learned so much from the articles that you've written. You are very explicit about your magical practice and kind of orientation in the Substack. So I highly recommend people read it, subscribe to it. It is wonderful and deeply, deeply magical.
Thank you so much.
What are some other ways that people can connect to you?
You can find me on Instagram and Threads at Cara Claymore.
There
it is.
Perfect.
At some point, I might have a website again.
Yeah.
But the Substack and those two socials are the best places to find me right now.
Great. And there are ways I know that people can sign up for your one-on-one training sessions and tarot and all of that good stuff too. And that's all linked out from your Instagram.
Yes, it is. And it might be generally yes. Just shoot me a message. Just send me an email message or emailing me like through Substack or through socials is usually that all works.
Fabulous. Okay. While we're wrapping up here, I just want to ask you about your name because it is such a powerful name and I know it's one that you've chosen for yourself. So before we end, tell us the story of the name that you've selected for yourself, if you feel comfortable.
I do. So Cara is my given name. Claymore is a chosen name. And it emerged in early 2021, I want to say. I'd had an intention that was not totally verbalized for a while that I needed some way to help myself actualize into the public sphere in a way that felt grounded, powerful, authentically me. That was sort of stewing in my body, mind somewhere. And sometime in 2021 or later, whenever, I had a dream. And someone in the dream pointed at me and said, "That's Cara Claymore." And I woke up and I went, "That's my name."
That's so powerful. I'm so glad I asked. And I told you before we started recording that I wanted to ask about your name change, and, we'll see if it comes up. I'm so glad that I followed my intuition to add a little something about it at the end, because I think names are so powerful. And it is so clear to me, Cara, that you are somebody taking these different avatars and archetypes. And yes, you have these separate relationships with them, but then you're like integrating them into the multifaceted jewel that you are as a human.
Oh,
so
shucks, Pam.
that's
Thank
real
you.
powerful.
Thank you. I am someone that has a very soft heart, and I am acutely aware of the level of pain in the world and that people go through in their search to self-actualize and to just deal and exist. And that's something that I've moved through a lot in my life. And so I am very zealous about anything that a person can do to make their life more fun and playful and connected to their own fire. And so following your inspiration, your creativity, your inner child, whatever you want to call it, is really powerful. Dreams are really powerful. And sometimes, like, a lot of my dreams are very mundane and germane. And it's like I'm in high school and whatever.
Yes.
And then sometimes I'll get a name, or I'll be told like the exact name of an author that I didn't even know existed. And then I'll look them up, and then that book will have something crazy in it that changes my life. And it's like, so
following the trail of cosmic breadcrumbs.
Follow the breadcrumbs.
Yes,
go down
exactly.
the rabbit hole.
Well, hail to Asher Hawthorne, hail to Thor, and hail Cara Claymore. Thank you so much for being on the Witch Wave. What a joy.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you.
That's it for the show. Thank you again to Cara Claymore for sharing their spirited strength magic with me. Do you have questions, feedback, need some witchly advice, or just want to share something magical that happened to you recently? Drop us an email or voice message over at witchwavepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and you just might make it on the Witch Wire. The Witch Wave is a Phantasmophile production written and produced by me, Pam Grossman. This episode was recorded, edited, and mixed by Josh Wilcox and/or Walter Nordquist and myself. Our theme music is the song Hand and I by Lycanthia. Our new Witch Wave logo was designed by Thunderwing. Special thanks go to Matt Freeman, Laura Antal, and Cece Pascal. You can check out information about this and other episodes on our website, and now buy Witch Wave merch at witchwavepodcast.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at witchwavepod, and you can check out my witch emoji for iPhone by going to witchemoji.com or downloading it in the App Store. My books Waking the Witch from Gallery Books and Witchcraft from Taschen are available everywhere now. And if you want more Witch Wave, or you would just like to support the show, please join us over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/witchwave. Thank you so much for listening. Witches are the future. I'll catch you next time on The Witch Wave.